southeastern Cuba. US President Donald Trump says that nothing has jeopardized the ceasefire in Gaza, but he's insisted that Israel should hit back if its soldiers are killed. This comes after Israel launched new airstrikes accusing Hamas of attacking troops and violating the US brokered truce. Meanwhile, Gaza's Civil Defense Ministry has stated that Israeli airstrikes killed at least 50 people, hitting several areas of the Strip. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered what he called powerful strikes earlier. Meanwhile, US Vice President J.D. Vance has stated that the ceasefire is still holding despite what he called little skirmishes. He has stated that Washington expects Israel to respond if its soldiers come under fire, but believes that US President Donald Trump's peace deal will endure. With us on the broadcast is Hamid Nadarian, a journalist and a Middle East affairs analyst, joining us from Tehran. Thank you so much for taking out time and speaking to us on NewsX World. There's been a lot that's been happening in the Middle East over the last couple of days. We've seen strikes, airstrikes, in fact, in the West Bank yesterday. Apart from that, we're seeing fresh airstrikes also take place in the Gaza Strip. The IDF claims that Hamas has violated the ceasefire by killing one of its personnel, a charge that Hamas has now denied. Fresh statements coming in from Donald Trump now claiming that the ceasefire has not been jeopardized, but if anything happens, the Israelis have a free hand. What do you make of what is transpiring in the Middle East as far as this delicate truce is concerned? Do you think it will still hold?
Hello, I hope you're well. And concerning what's been happening, especially the tumultuous situation in the Gaza Strip of especially Tuesday. It's like Tuesday was, the things that happened on the ground were quite seismic. It's like, it was a historical ceasefire, not the entire ceasefire. It was a deal aimed at implementation of the first phase of Donald Trump's 20-point ceasefire plan, which was explained or described by some as revolutionary and unprecedented. And some even interpreted that as Trump's attempt at securing the Nobel Peace Prize, which actually did not happen. But anyways, it's like the deal was historic in many aspects, in the fact that the terms that Hamas agreed to implement were just so unique and so rare. It agreed to hand over the captives, whether living or deceased, and also it agreed to hand over Gaza's administration, which is a great deal. It's something which had not happened for decades. And I personally believe that after Israel's usual and ordinary way of manipulating the situation on the ground, Tel Aviv is actually doing something. It's actually, it may be what some may call a false flag attack. You see what I mean? It's like, doing something, planning an attack, and blaming it on, for example, someone else, like Hamas. For instance, there have been so many cases, like Hamas for itself says that it has had nothing to do with the incident, and it admits that there has been an incident in Rafah, where apparently Israeli forces have been attacked with RPGs and sniper fire. And it says it's got nothing to do with it. It says it's been an incident. So probably by acknowledging that it's been an incident, it means that it may be what Hamas calls Israeli-backed gangs. Do you see what I mean? There have been lots of militias there, associated with various families, like wayward members of various families inside Gaza, whom the families themselves have denounced and let's say have and also renounced. For example, Hamas is after these gangs, after these militants, and rounding them up. Israel is on the one hand condemning Hamas, and on the it's like finding fault with everything that Hamas does. For example, it says that Hamas is dilly-dallying, is delaying, is procrastinating in turning over the captives. You see what I mean? And Israel says, there's a lot of debris. There's a lot of destruction caused by the war. So how it is supposed to hand over all the deceased victims in time? It needs equipment. It needs, a lot of excavation, taking the debris out and retrieving the bodies. So it's not like, flick of a switch, just handing over the bodies. The bodies are not there for you to go and pick up. But I believe that, Israel is manipulating the situation.
The narrative is what is your assessment. At the same time, you've mentioned what's taking place within Gaza itself, the executions we've seen. But apart from that, Donald Trump has proposed a sort of international coalition in the interim to ensure that these strikes do not take place, executions don't take place on the ground as well. Reconstruction efforts are being monitored. This would include Arab countries such as Egypt, Qatar, UAE, Turkey as well. We've also recently seen a statement by the Israeli Defense Forces objecting to Turkish troops being posted on ground as part of this coalition. How do you read into this statement?
It's very delicate and volatile. The fact of the matter is that Hamas says whoever comes to rule Gaza has got to be Palestinian. There's got to be Palestinian administration, technocrats,
yes.
and it's like no foreign oversight, no foreign control. So it's a little delicate, and I believe it's said that whatever foreign force is supposed to be deployed inside Gaza has got to be deployed behind the so-called yellow line. So I believe that Hamas has, it's like come down a lot. It's like, back down from its once inviolate and entrenched principles so much. All that Israel has got to do is to prevent another earthquake from happening. Just seize the opportunity and let this place, witness peace and calm once and for all. It's like it's a very, it's a historical moment. Israel has got to stop being, acting so stubborn, doing whatever it wants at whatever time that it wants, going wherever it wants, all guns blazing, and it's like turning on all artillery and aerial fire and killing whoever it wants, and then asking the United States to support it, which it has always received in every form: military, political, diplomatic, intelligence. So I believe that if Israel actually cooperates just a little, probably things are going to change in the same way that they have been changing for, since early October. The agreement itself was so unique, so rare. I personally had not seen Hamas just backing down from its principles or, the things that it would not agree upon previously so much. So it's a great deal. It's a great deal. And probably, if the issue of the occupation is addressed duly and Hamas makes sure that Israel does not seek to occupy or reoccupy, so to speak, reoccupy Gaza, because, Israel used to occupy Gaza and let go of it in 2005. If Hamas makes sure of that, probably, some other things are going to happen. Unified Palestinian administrative body is going to come to rule, and probably Israel can get its guarantees, and the Palestinians can get their guarantees, and things can be resolved once and for all.
Indeed, I request you to stay on with us. You've, of course, pointed out the lobby, the Israeli lobby that operates in the United States of America. Meanwhile, on the ground, medics could be seen rushing bodies into hospitals in Khan Yunis and Gaza after Israel launched these airstrikes in the enclave. Now, Israel has accused Hamas of violating the ceasefire. Meanwhile, local health officials in Gaza have informed that at least 50 people have been killed. The Israeli military is not commenting yet, but we do know that Benjamin Netanyahu had ordered these attacks against what he called Hamas's violations. You can clearly see those visuals on your screens. Nearly 50 such people could be seen being carried by these ambulances into hospitals in Khan Yunis and Gaza City. Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. Hamid Nadarian. A lot that is being spoken about right now is post-war reconstruction in Gaza itself. A lot of Palestinians are worried at this time because their houses have been reduced to rubble. There were numerous hospitals that were bombed as well during the course of the last 2 years as the war protracted and continued. Access to medical supplies was limited too. What do you think needs to be done from a humanitarian standpoint, apart from the crossings being opened? What sort of international support should be provided to the people of Gaza?
You know, the fact of the matter is that the largest part of the Gaza Strip has been reduced to rubble. And, you know, the extent of the destruction, for example, if you search, just look up Gaza on Google. You see what I mean? You know, the picture that comes up is the picture that belongs to, for example, 10 years ago, right? You know, it looks like a sort of a decent place, you know, lots of high rises, lots of infrastructure. But right now it's a picture of misery. You know, there's nothing there. It's like, instead of, you know, except, you know, babies crying and the people starving. And the number of the aid trucks that have been coming in have been far less than the number that has been agreed. So what I think is that, for example, I think it's going to take generations for this coastal sliver to rebuild. And it's going to take monumental effort on the part of major international actors. Westerners, first and foremost, the United States, its European allies, especially Germany, given its technological advancement. You know, if they can just remove the obstacles on the way of entry of reconstruction materials and equipment, you know, it can happen, but it needs cooperation on every part. If Hamas violates the deal, it's got limited military equipment. You see what I mean? How many people can it potentially kill? How much destruction can it cause? But Israel, thanks, unfortunately, to the United States, is one of the biggest military industrial entities in the world right now. It's like, you know, the United States has ratcheted up, has increased its annual support for Israel in, you know, unprecedentedly. Like, you know, 2/3 of Israel's military equipment comes from the United States. So I think the United States has got to revisit that. But first and foremost, I think the thing that could happen that could meaningfully change things on the ground is for the Israeli regime to decide once and for all whether it wants to go along with the so-called Greater Israel plan. You know, it's expansionism, it's occupation, you know, it's just going wherever it wants and doing whatever it wants at whatever time that it wants. If it decides against that, if it comes to terms, then it's going to happen. You know, from what I've been witnessing for the past decades, it's been like, you know, something that has been happening, and the United States has been furnishing full support behind it, has been Israel's ambitions. Once both the regime and the United States decide against this routine courses of action, you know, decide to change the pattern, things can happen. But at the same time, I strongly doubt it, because I believe that, for example, 50 people are, you know, no little number. You know, it's like 50 lives, and probably I believe 16 children. You know, once by the time that the death toll stood at 37, there were 16 children among them. You see what I mean? You know, it's like blood follows blood. And Israel has got the means to just to inflict immense destruction and shed immense blood. Do you see what I mean? It's like it's the genocide machinery. The United Nations, all the international parties have verified this. It's a genocide apartheid machinery. It's got to change. It's got to change. And I don't know with the equipment and with the military-industrial complex that Israel has, and with the all-out support, like unwavering support that the United States has been providing it with, I don't know, and I'm not sure, and I strongly doubt whether Israel is going to commit to this.
All right, so with that, I would like to thank you for taking out time sharing your perspective with us on NewsX World. Meanwhile, we're tracking news this time from Tel Aviv's Hostages Square. We're learning that Israelis gathered in the Hostages Square yesterday to pray for the return of the remaining deceased hostages held in Gaza. The event marked another emotional night in the city as families and supporters lit candles and held photographs of their loved ones that still remain unaccounted for. Now, among those present at the gathering was Bar Cooperstein, an Israeli hostage who was recently released by Hamas. He thanked the crowd for their support and invited them to join him in a mass prayer planned for later this week. Listen in.
באמת, אין לי מילים לתאר את כל האהבה ואת כל מה שאתם עושים בשבילי ובשביל כל שאר החטופים. זה פשוט מטורף. עם כל העניין של השיקום וזה, אמרתי, אני חייב להגיע לפה ולהגיד תודה ובאמת להעריך את כל מה שעשיתם בשבילי. אין מילים שיוצאות לי מהפה. גם כל מי שבא אליי ופוגש אותי אומר לי, גם לי אין מילים להגיד. אין, זה פשוט לא יוצא, זה פשוט טירוף. אז חשוב לי להגיד שיש לנו עוד אחים שלנו שנמצאים שם בשבי, והם חייבים לצאת, ואני רוצה להזמין את כולם ביום שישי בשעה 10. אני רוצה לארגן הנחת תפילין המונית, שכולכם תניחו ביחד איתי, תגשימו את החלום שלי. החלום שלי היה זה להניח תפילין בשבי, ואנחנו נעשה את זה בשביל שחרור כל אחינו שנמצאים עדיין בשבי. תודה רבה לכולם.
Another speaker at the event was Orna Neutra, the mother of Omer Neutra, whose deceased body still remains in Gaza. Meanwhile, let's in fact listen into what she said.
זכינו לראות ולחבק חלק מהשבים מהמנהרות, וזו תחושת נס אמיתית. אבל במקביל נותרנו אנחנו בתוך חלום בלהות שנמשך כבר 753 ימים בלי נקודת סיום ברורה לעין. אנחנו נלחמים בכל מאודנו למען דבר שאף הורה לא אמור להיאבק עליו. ודאות המוות של בנינו עומר. זהו מאבק בלתי אפשרי. בורחים מהבשורה הקשה, ובו במידה גם נמשכים אליה. מפחד לדעת ומפחד לא לדעת. בין הידיעה המצמיתה שבמוות לבין החרדה מהיעדר הסגירה, כי בלי ודאות אין ריפוי, ובלי קבר אין התחלה של אבל.
This vigil comes amidst reports that Hamas is yet to release 13 bodies of Israeli hostages out of a total of 28 that were agreed to be returned in the first phase of the ceasefire plan itself. Shifting focus to more news coming in, 2 men who were convicted